I now a miserable demon, stealing blood to live, damned and cursed to hell? Is this all that remains of noble Christoph?
Thank you. We'll be in touch.
But I haven't gotten to the part about the shrieking maggots of grief yet.
I said thank you!
Vampire the Masquerade. Perhaps the most quintessentially 90s of all tabletop RPGs. Casting aside the high fantasy dungeon crawling of D&D and its DN derivatives for a dark, somber affair rife with political intrigue and moral ambiguity, all wrapped up in a rebellious counterculture attitude the creators dubbed Gothic Punk. You think movies like Blade or Underworld would have had the same aesthetic or mood without Masquerade's existence?
Are you fucking kidding me?
It may not have innovated concepts like elaborate conspiracies hiding the presence of the supernatural all around us, or using horror monsters as a metaphor for marginalized peoples. But Vampire the Masquerade was, to my knowledge at least, the first to do so in any playable form. Yet for all of its influence, the franchise itself has held a tragically small presence outside of the tabletop RPG sphere. Its one chance at mainstream exposure foiled by whatever lunatic thought Vampire the Masquerade could work on mid-90s network TV. When the closest thing you have to a good live-action adaptation is a professional wrestler who is clearly Ventrue, not Gangrel, then you know you haven't had the best of luck. But where Masquerade has fared somewhat better is on the video game front, though even there it still took 9 years from the release of Chicago by Night before one got made. Look, all I'm saying is that it only took 2 years for Space 1889 to get one.
Jeez, you don't have to be a dick about it.
Enter the first, oft-forgotten stab at bringing the world of darkness to the realm of video games. The Joaquin to Bloodlines River Phoenix, Vampire the Masquerade, Redemption.
The cheerful daylight world belies the horrors that prowl by night. How can the good people of Prague go about their business with such evil abroad in the land?
Released in 2000 for Windows with a Mac version coming a year later, Redemption was the first game developed by Nihilistic Software, a company founded by LucasArts programmers Ray Gresko and Robert Hubner, and Rogue Entertainment designer Steve Tietze. Steve. Adapting a beloved pen and paper RPG for your first game is a pretty ballsy choice, but with the massive boom period computer RPGs were experiencing at the time, Nihilistic picked a fantastic moment to do so. Even better, 1999's Planescape Torment, the greatest RPG ever made, don't even try to convince me otherwise, had already primed players for more cerebral, dialogue-centric role-playing. So, naturally, Nihilistic took the game beloved by goths and theater kids the world over, where combat is a distant second to melodramatic role-playing.
I reclaim this treasure from the clutches of evil, and reconsecrate it to a godly purpose.
And created a linear Diablo-alike with only the barest hint of dialogue trees. Oh, that's right. Gresko and Hubner were on the Dark Forces side of LucasArts, not the point-and-click adventure one. But Redemption wouldn't be getting featured on this channel if it was a complete write-off, so let's dig our teeth into the supple neck of the... premise? Lost the plot in that metaphor, but you get the idea. Our tale begins in the 12th century as the French crusader Christophe Romuald is wounded in battle. Taken to a convent in nearby Prague to recuperate, or die of sepsis, this is the Middle Ages we're talking about after all, it could go either way, Christophe awakens to the visage of Sister Agnieszka, who has been caring for him day and night. And by the power of the Florence Nightingale effect, the pair swiftly fall for each other.
I must return to my...
My lord, peace, I beg thee.
Get down, get down.
Though their vows prevent them from being together, they will not stop the valorous knight from defending Agnieszka against the horrors which stalk the streets of Prague.
Christoph, thy wound.
Nay, 'tis nothing. A scratch.
After we close all those stitches he just reopened. But Christoph's one-man crusade against the darkness soon draws the attention of Prague's Cainite population after he slays the powerful Tzimisce, Ozra the Unliving.
Foul misery. I offer thee no last rites. The sweet redemption of our Lord is forbidden to the likes of thee. Thou hast no home now but the eternal torments of hell.
Take it easy, it's just a drawing.
Archbishop Giza is none too pleased with our hero either, as he'd already called dibs on Agnieszka, which is rather surprising to me seeing as how he's a Catholic priest and she's not a 10-year-old boy. Though Giza's impotent rage matters little in the long run, it is by his petty order for Kristoff to patrol Prague alone that night which sets everything into motion as our plot truly begins.
I know thy ways, demon, and I have lore enough to kill thee.
Nay, thou art helpless in my hands as a naked babe.
Nay! Oh, nay!
Newly embraced into Clan Bruja, Kristoff must now come to grips with his damnation and find his way on the path of humanity, lest the beast swallow him whole. Translated from White Wolf melodrama to English, Big C is a vampire now, and if he doesn't learn restraint to go along with his new powers, he'll eventually become just as much a monster on the inside as he is on the outside. While you're introduced to the bare-bones basics in that first hour or so prior to Kristoff's embrace, here is where Redemption's gameplay really begins to show itself. For better and for worse. Like I said before, the core of Redemption can be described as Diablo, but with the trappings and rule set of Vampire the Masquerade. Or considering that you get a coterie to control and swap between, maybe it's more like Throne of Darkness before Throne of Darkness? As such, the controls are extremely similar. Click there, character moves there. Click enemy, character attacks enemy. Click one pixel too close to unwalkable terrain, character stops in place while you struggle to orient the camera in a way that the game finally understands where you want your character to go when you click. Okay, maybe there's a few differences. Yeah, we're ripping the band-aid off immediately. Who the hell thought this was an acceptable camera distance for a point-and-click action RPG? No, I'm not zoomed in. This is as far back as it goes. The most I can adjust at this point is how far it's pointing up or down, and in the 20-odd years since I first played this, I have never once found an angle that felt completely right. Every time I wind up giving up on trying to find a sweet spot and just leave it at what I call the good enough angle. The combat itself also takes a bit of getting used to, but that's less on the mechanics and more on Redemption's failure to provide enough info without repeatedly consulting the manual mid-game. This came out in 2000, not 1990. I'm not giving it a pass when things like mouse over tooltips and detailed item descriptions had been a thing for years by this point. You wind up with moments like how I needed a guide to tell me that weapon damage maxes out at 75 even with 100 in strength, so dexterity is far more important even for melee builds. In that moment, I finally understood why I'd always struggled to make it past Vienna in all of my previous attempts. Another super important stat is wits. Not only does it help prevent the mental status effects many enemies love to spam, but it also lowers the rate Frenzy builds, that being the third bar here below your health and blood pool. Let this thing max out, and you'll lose control of that character as the beast takes over, often leading them to attack the rest of your coterie, which, while accurate to the tabletop, is an incredibly annoying feature when placed in a game modeled after Diablo. See, taking damage is a way of life in these types of games. Which is why my personal nickname for Diablo-alikes, especially the older ones, is the Potion Chugger RPG. Except here, once Kristoff becomes a vampire, you don't have any healing potions to chug and instead have to rely on the blood healing discipline. So having this added punishment for taking too much damage before you have a chance to heal can have a cascading effect that turns a perfectly winnable fight into reloading your last save. Oh, that reminds me. If you're playing this in modern Windows, make sure you go into the Properties for the Save Game folder and check the Indexing option under Advanced Attributes. Otherwise, Windows won't let the game overwrite any previous saves because fucking Microsoft. God, I wish I wasn't so damn Linux illiterate. Once you've wrapped your head around how quirked up on a Saturday night the combat insists on being, though, it can be quite engaging on a base level. Running around dungeons as a creature of the night, lopping heads off and draining hapless enemies of their blood, very slowly, never fails to amuse the teenage edgelord in me. It may not feel as masquerade-y as it could have been, never been able to figure out how to feed on normies without immediately alerting every guard in the Tri-Kingdom area for starters, but that doesn't stop the core of Redemption from being fun. It will, however, beat your ass into the ground, then pull you back up just so it can tombstone you into an exploding casket. Or to put it in a way sane people can understand, the difficulty spikes in this game are like Sideshow Bob's relationship with rakes. Everything will be smooth sailing for a while, you'll start to get a little confident about your party, and then groups of mage enemies that spam fireballs. You recover, start getting your bearings again. Daylight section in a game with some of the worst pathfinding imaginable. You somehow push through that and more. Finally make it to the big confrontation with the Zamitzi. Enemies that spam magic attacks which fill your frenzy meter. It could be worse. I mean, there aren't any enemies with any extra bullshit like, oh, I don't know, special attack animations which lock your character in place for a guaranteed hit. Well, at least there aren't bosses that can do the same thing and it's a one-hit kill. Why do I say things? Redemption isn't playing fair and neither should you. You find an exploit, you take it. Prison of Ice, for instance. Have Kristoff learn from that blood ritual thaumaturgy tome you found, and now you've got permanent access to a discipline which freezes enemies in place and leaves them wide open for attacks. Is it cheap? A little. Yet there's almost certainly no way I could have finished this game without it. Then the weirdest damn thing happens and redemption gets 10 times easier once you reach the modern day. And before anyone gets on my case about it, look at the back of the box. They were not hiding it. It's a hell of a trip to go from having a tough time with Zamitzi flesh abominations to tanking bullets, holy water, and true faith from hunters like it's nothing. Yeah, a 9th gen fledgling from the 12th century is probably stronger than the average vampire of the 20th century, but the hunter should at least pose a tiny threat. And really, outside of 2 dungeons, the modern day in general is a breeze compared to what you had to endure in the Dark Ages. Not sure if that was a message Nihilistic intended to send, but that's a clever way to go about it if they did. You've probably noticed by this point I've said very little in regard to playing Redemption with a full party. And that's because their AI is as dumb as a sack of bricks. If the awful pathfinding often causing them to get hung up on the environment wasn't bad enough, they'll consistently waste disciplines and items in the easiest of fights, more often than not leaving their blood pool borderline empty by the time you face an actual challenge. And ranged combat is right out until the time skip because the AI is fond of wasting ammo by trying to shoot through solid walls, and I am not made of gold. The most control you get over their behavior is whether or not they only pull from the quick access slots, and which of the 3 stances your coterie takes. Leave it on neutral as much as possible, trust me on this. It winds up feeling less like a group of badass vampires fighting side by side, and more like you're babysitting 3 idiots with a death wish. Luckily, this gets evened out by virtue of the enemy AI being just as stupid. For example, the best way to deal with a group of Tremere mages is to position yourself so that one of the mage's buddies is between you and him. As long as you don't move, neither will the mage even as he flambés his own ally with fireballs all the livelong day. It's great for both thinning out the herd and getting those wannabe wizards to waste their own blood supply. Now, while the RTFM read the fucking manual mindset pervading Redemption's interface and mechanics, there's a secondary attack, was stuck in the past even when it was first released, moronic AI remained a common issue well into the 2000s. So I can let this slide a bit more than I did the lack of tooltips and the like. Not entirely, the inability to adjust the behavior of your companions is a little ridiculous, but enough to acknowledge that a lot of this jank is just the cost of doing business when you play games from around this time. The many buggy moments? That's more of a series-specific trademark. These days, everyone gets to see Bloodlines for the gem that it is thanks to fan patches, but as someone who still remembers what the game was like on launch, there's a damn good reason those fan patches were needed. And it's a similar story for Redemption. Except here, the lone fan patch available also drastically rebalances the gameplay, meaning that I had to stick with the one major official patch that got released. This led to many an amusing moment as some enemies would stay standing perfectly still even after being killed, or the camera would cut to the wrong character during dialogue, or Samuel would decide that he was now one with the sewer wall, though nothing game-breaking that was actually the fault of the software instead of Windows. With all the issues holding it down, I find it hard to say that I consider the gameplay in Redemption to be good, yet it never quite slips into outright bad territory, remaining right on that dividing line where it's just serviceable enough to keep you playing. An aspect which is buoyed by the stellar presentation. While there are certainly visual elements which have aged like soft cheese, such as the nutcracker mouth movements and dialogue,
Enough, Cosmos!
Redemption nevertheless carries with it excellent character design, suitably gothic levels, and an atmosphere so thick that Scooby-Doo could cut it with a knife. It may be a bit of a Masquerade violation in gameplay terms, but Nihilistic most certainly understood the assignment here. to the point that technical limitations clearly hampered their cinematic ambitions. The faces your characters make down in the UI while feeding are also way more hilarious than cool or scary. I loves me some active character portraits like these, but they can be as much a curse as they are a blessing. And since we're talking visuals, this feels about the right time to mention that I did try getting this game running in widescreen. However, Redemption doesn't exactly play well with aspect ratios outside of 4:3. You either have to put up with the camera pulling in too close in dialogue and cutting most of a character's head off like in a cheap slice of life anime, or you can use the one fix I managed to find that doesn't stretch the UI, leaving you with... that looks so much worse than an even border along the sides. Yeah, I'll just stick with 4:3, thank you very much. The music does plenty of heavy lifting too when it comes to Redemption's atmosphere. Making the interesting choice of splitting the work between Future Sacrifice and Wizardry 8 composer Kevin Manthe for the Dark Ages sections, and short-lived electronic duo Youth Engine for when you switch to the modern day, Redemption winds up with an incredibly dissonant soundtrack which nigh perfectly encapsulates the tonal difference between the two eras. After several hours of gothic orchestral arrangements, making a hard switch to late 90s breakbeat and dark electro never feels quite right, and that's exactly the point, as this enables the player to experience just a semblance of how out of place the ideal knight Kristoff personally feels in the new millennium.
The new millennium doesn't begin for another year. 2001.
I'm not just gonna sit here and be actually by fucking Bubbles. Mainly due to my lack of an ass since this image cuts off at the neck. Which brings us to the voice acting. And it's not just a wild Tara Strong leaping from the tall grass. Redemption's voice cast numbers among the strongest of the year 2000. We've got the original voice of Bob from Reboot, Michael Benyer, as Kristoff's first vampire buddy Wilhelm.
Nay, the mad vampires are called Malkavian. Shouldst thou meet one, God help thee. Shouldst thou need his assistance, God cannot help thee.
She of far too many roles to list, Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, as his sire Ekaterina the Wise. Citation needed on that nickname.
For a bumpkin of a holy warrior, thou dost reason like a Greek sage.
Curtis Armstrong, of all people, is the antisocial punk rocker Pink.
Welcome to the new world, Squire. Hope you like what we done with the place.
And plenty more I would love to specify, but the credits don't list them by their roles, so I can only go by the ones I recognize for sure.
That's Disney evil.
By far the standout performance, though, belongs to Nicholas Guest as Kristoff himself. His sheer commitment to the role and ability to handle Kristoff's boundless enthusiasm for monologuing in flowery Shakespearean English puts him in the same rarefied air as Simon Templeman and Michael Bell for gaming's best hammy vampiric sad boy.
Now is all my reason thrown down. Surely my sleep hath made me mad, for if I'm yet sane, then the world has become a lunatic asylum. Towers of glass loom over the tallest cathedral spires. Juggernauts of steel hurtle through the streets of London. The cobbled Roman roads, which once I walked as a young crusader, are now fused into a single ribbon of black stone. And those roads are clogged with night-walking Londoners, heedless of the danger from the vampires among them. Are they so emboldened by the phantom torches, which pierce the night and stab my eyes? Surely my world has died, and all I love lies buried with it.
It's honestly a shame that he was never in any Legacy of Kain game.
So, the rumors speak true.
Oh, of course he was in the worst one. Every time I think I've found all the potential Blood Omen 2 wasted. Though I don't quite understand why the French Kristoff speaks in the Queen's English.
Hail and well met to thee, Knights of St. John.
'Tis good to hear the voice of a fellow Frenchman.
Guest performance is a major part of the glue that holds Redemption's many fractured elements together. To continue the Legacy of Kain comparisons, his numerous angsty monologues and witty repartee possess a similar power as Raziel's to immediately pull the player's attention back on the narrative, no matter how frustrating or overlong the previous sequence had been. Even if you don't care much about what happens to half of the cast, you damn well care about Kristoff and his struggle. And yes, that also comes down to good writing, which I'll get to praising in a bit. but it also requires an actor with enough charisma to get the audience to find the character compelling rather than whiny. There's a very good chance that if they'd cast someone besides Nicholas Guest, I wouldn't be talking about this game today. Several days after I'd intended to get this video up. That August vacation of mine appears to have accomplished jack of all shit in the long term.
Nope.
Now we come to the story, the other part of the aforementioned glue holding things together. And similar to Guest's performance, the main strength of Redemption's narrative comes from its absolute commitment to the bit, possessing the two Mels, melodrama and melancholy, in spades. Dialogue from across the game reads like a goth kid's poetry journal, exactly how you want a vampire epic to feel.
I offer thee any comfort I may give in thy grief.
I thank thee, but I do not surrender my hope of reunion with Inesca, even though I am beyond all hope.
Then thy Inesca is fortunate indeed, though such barren hope might breed only more sorrow.
And it does so with the kind of earnestness that other urban fantasy of the time like Buffy were busy smothering in its bed with the pillow of smug irony.
Alright, I get it, you're evil. Do we have to chat about it all day?
Perhaps I would have felt differently in 2000, but I've grown so weary of that postmodernist obsession with irony and its perpetual fear of doing anything that could be seen as cheesy or corny. So a game actually from those dark Buffy times playing all the vampire, romance, and vampire romance tropes straight as an arrow is incredibly refreshing. Not even Bloodlines could accomplish that, but there it's compensated for by having wonderful characters like Smiling Jack be the ones to do the postmodernizing.
Well, you can still be destroyed, but forget the books and the movies. Garlic, it's worthless. A cross? Shove it right up their ass. A stake? Only if it catches you in the heart, and then it just paralyzes you. Running water? That's no problem. I bathe. Occasionally.
Kristoff's 12th century adventures begin with the recovery of a fragment of the Book of Nod, a collection of texts sacred to many Cainites, which was stolen from the Bruja by their supposed allies in the Cappadocians. After a vigorous storming of the Cappadocian sanctum by Kristoff and Wilhelm, butchering everyone in sight, it ultimately comes to light that the theft was perpetrated by one errant member of the clan intent on studying it for his own ends. Fortunately, the local Cappadocian leader isn't absolutely livid for the massacre of a good portion of his people, and even provides a new companion for the boys.
I offer thee my prized child, Serena. She will aid thee in thy efforts.
I pray that my service will be of value to thee.
And in between kicking all kinds of Cappadocian ass and recruiting Serena, Kristoff made a side trip to Inesca's place for the classic tragic monster tries desperately to push the love interest away scene.
Nay, I pray thee stay. My honored lord, thy soul is in peril.
My honored lady, my soul is lost. My cause is doomed, and I am damned. I go. I will not look upon thee again.
However, our favorite drama king is soon troubled by nightmares of attacking his beloved. Taking his worries to his sire Ekaterina and her himbo Cosmos,
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
It's revealed that Inesca isn't some ingenue who's going to sit around all day waiting for her man to come back. No, sir. She went all Nancy Drew in a habit and did enough of her own sleuthing to discover the Bruja hideout and then just waltz in demanding to speak to Kristoff. Even the normally stoic Ekaterina doesn't bother to hide her admiration for the massive ovaries it took to walk into a vampire sanctum and stare down a centuries-old Cainite with zero fear.
There was a mania that shone in her eye, a kind of madness. And yet her mind was sharp, as if her delirium had strengthened her mind rather than sapped it. In another time, I would have been moved to take such a one as my child.
Though incredibly hot, I mean brave, Inesca's iron-willed search for a way to save Kristoff has apparently caught the wrong sort of attention, as she has since joined the countless humans and Cainite alike who have gone missing recently. All signs point to the Tremere mages, but without as clear a grievance as they had with the Nod fragment, the Bruja first need permission from the Ventru prince Rudolf Brandl, and after completing the fetch quest he demands of them and its associated dungeon, the prince gives them the go-ahead.
May we liberate mortal slaves as well, or does the prince care not for those whose blood sustains us?
I see that Ekaterina the Wise has not yet tamed the impertinent tongue of this child. I shall assist her in the chore. Now that thou hast paid the price, I give thee full dispensation to liberate such mortals as thou findeth within Arden's chantry. Now get thee from my sight.
Fighting their way through Tremere fireball spammers and rock golems that hit way harder than you'd expect, the Coterie are able to rescue some of those taken by the Tremere, including their newest member, the Gangrel Eric. See? I told you the wrestler looks nothing like a Gangrel. Yet for all of those they're able to save, Anezka is not among them. As the dungeon boss reveals, she was taken to Vienna as part of the last blood slave shipment. Which means it's time to get your lederhosen, kids, because we're going to Austria. The majority of the Coterie's time in Vienna is spent dancing to the tune of the pompous Count Orsi, who has the one voice in the game I really can't stand.
Well, I can see thou hast no courtly manners in the bumpkin.
I don't know if it's his goofy, forced accent that sounds straight out of a 2000s Abridged series or what, but whenever he had any lengthy bit of dialogue, I'd start to disassociate just so I didn't have to hear his voice. I developed that technique thanks to being a TNA fan when Jeff Jarrett was on top.
He broke 6,000 guitars, never drew a dime, but he thought he was the man.
To the shock of nobody familiar with the World of Darkness, or basic story structure, Orsi sells our vampiros out to the Tremere and their loyal foot soldiers in the Teutonic Knights once he no longer has any use for them.
Thou hast heard my oath, thou depraved peddler of living flesh.
Well, I have spent too much time with thee.
While you're here in the Teutonic Knights base, grab this sword here and don't make the same mistake I did in selling it. I was laser focused on accuracy above all else at that point and totally missed that it dealt aggravated damage, the one damage type basically nobody has good defense against. The same is true of the Feral Claws discipline, another thing I failed to notice until it was almost too late. It honestly amazes me that people care about my opinion when I am so clearly a giant fucking idiot. Escaping their prison and fresh out of fucks to give at this point, Kristoff and friends decide to assault the Tremere stronghold head-on while the bulk of their forces are out fighting the Tzimisce. And while they deal the Blood Mages one hell of a black eye, yet again Anezka is nowhere to be found. To make matters worse, the local Tremere leader Etrius appears at the worst possible moment, and he is less than pleased at their intrusion, forcibly finishing the transformation ritual that the Tremere back in Prague were attempting on Eric when the Coterie rescued him.
No!
They're forced to first put their friend down before taking the fight to Etrius. But just when it seems they have the upper hand, Etrius pulls the I let you win card in order to preserve his strength for the still ongoing attack on the Tzimisce. He is at least kind enough to reveal Anezka's whereabouts before leaving.
Hear me, Promethean! Thy precious Anezka is not here. The October caravan from that idiot Orsi never reached the house to Hexi. The hated Tzimisce laid a trap near Prague. They took the caravan and all therein.
So in all likelihood, she's been in Prague this entire time.
Oh, we were right there, man!
Some dumbass forgot to put a spoiler warning line in the script, so I'm putting one here. Skip ahead to this point if you don't want to be spoiled on the game's actual reveals. Back in Prague, shit has hit the fan as the populace are in the midst of besieging the Tzimisce's castle. Which would normally be a good thing, let the bloodbags do the heavy lifting for once and all that, but Kristoff is undead set on rescuing Milady, so we're headed into the belly of the beast. A belly that's currently burning to the ground. I'm sure this will end well. And indeed, after liberal abuse of Prison of Ice in order to survive the war ghouls and their love of spamming unblockables, Tzimisce and their fucking draw out the beast discipline, and the thing with the Slavic name I can't pronounce snapping into a Kristoff-shaped Slim Jim,
Oh, yeah!
the Coterie reach the final chamber to find that Anezka has decided she's NWO for life.
The following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
I will enjoy the taste of thy Bruja blood. It is so clean compared to the sweet corruption of Tzimisce blood. Bid the devil greetings from me, for I send thee to hell.
Relishing in her newly ghoulified life, Anezka has already graduated to attempting to release an ancient evil. In this case, the Methuselah, a term referring to ancient vampires second only to Cain's children and their direct offspring. Vukodlak the Defiler, who was sealed away long ago for his crimes against vampire society.
Anezka is mine now, Philip. Another of my servants that awaits me in my slumber. Even now she grows strong as my blood courses through her veins. As I rise to meet night sky of the new millennium. The very antediluvians will shudder in fear.
Methinks we be boned.
To the rest of the world's immense luck, the fire upstairs has done a number on the foundation by this point, and the roof caves in on Kristoff and Inezka before the ritual can be completed.
Inezka!
800 long years pass as Kristoff lies in torpor, buried beneath a mountain of rubble. Nations rise and fall. Songs like Afternoon Delight and Disco Duck top the charts, yet everyone eternally acts like #1 hits being garbage is a recent development. And worst of all, kids these days don't like the same thing we did back in the day. Shocked awake by that revelation, or possibly because of the voice calling to him, Kristoff breaks free from his crate prison only to find himself in a world he no longer recognizes, and a legion of gung-ho hunters between him and the exit. It's a good thing they're not much of an actual threat. Slicing and dicing his way to freedom, Kristoff encounters the leader of these hunters who, as it turns out, has been drinking vampire blood for ages to empower himself and intends to do the same to Kristoff, which is weird since I thought hunters were immune to supernatural effects like that, and considering how easily he goes down, it might very well have been a placebo effect. Afterwards, Kristoff wastes no time in rebuilding his coterie, steadily coming to grips with the modern day in the meantime. Recruiting the Bruja murder hobo Pink and the Toreador hooker Lily.
Prove it. Who are Cry Cry Cry?
You mean the American band Cry Cry Cry? Aren't they that acoustic trio that even though they're all songwriters only does covers of songs by other groups and performs the most depressing—
Enough! She's a Tory, all right.
The trio proceed to tear it up across London in search of a way to smuggle themselves to New York, where the Tzimisce took the artifacts they stole from the hunters, completely devastating the local Sedite sect and freeing Lily from her blood bond in the process.
All I can tell you is that the next ship out is the Saint Magdalena. Lock 23, laden with guns, heroin, emigrating Sabbats, and the sacred earth of Prague.
One Dracula homage followed by a hysterically year 2000 transition later. The partery arrive in the Big Apple. But even with Kristoff able to hold his these and thous for a change while they pose as the Interpol guys from the ship.
The big boss is Alessandro Giovanni. You must attack his warehouse. There you shall find weapons, opium, and the contraband of Prague.
The FBI agent in charge of the raid on the Giovanni warehouse has to swing his jurisdiction in everyone's face, so they'll have to find another way to get in. On the bright side, this leads to meeting the group's final member, Samuel, the world's friendliest Nosferatu.
I owe you all a life boon. I'll gladly join you and fight your enemies.
After saving him from his buddies who went Sabbat, Sam takes them to meet his buddy Dev Null, a Malkavian hacker. Though he's about as easy to understand as most of his clan.
Don't use your knife, Kevin. I mean, Kabar. Or they'll rebuke ya. Ooh. Yucca.
Actually, for him, this is pretty lucid.
Dev Null proves to be one of the rare Canaanites you could call trustworthy when he offers his help free of charge, only needing the group to go down into the sewers to plant a transponder on an FBI CC line so he can find them the access code to the warehouse. At this point, rats, spiders, and a few Nosferatu are a breeze, so he may as well have asked them to pick up his groceries for all the challenge that was. Really though, this is redemption luring you into a false sense of security before making you slog through the Giovanni warehouse. This is without a doubt the hardest section of the game, and the reason why is simple. Inbred vampire mobsters with Gatling guns and rocket launchers. It's also what you should respond with if anyone ever tries to tell you that the world of darkness is deathly serious all the time. One or two Giovanni on their own aren't too bad, but they can be a nightmare to deal with in groups. Not only are they packing the biggest heat in the game, many of which deal that nasty aggravated damage I talked about earlier, but thanks to being a bunch of necromancers, Giovanni have access to disciplines which let them summon hard-to-hit wraiths or leave poisonous fart clouds floating around. The latter of which wouldn't be a problem if the stupid AI-controlled party members would make the slightest attempt to move away from the danger. At the end of the warehouse raid, the coterie encounter the big boss... I forget his name. Let's call him Tony Marinara. Tony easily breaks after one of Kristoff's best lines in the whole game.
Stand, sir. Or wouldst thou arrive in hell squatting upon thy arse?
And explains that he was paid to move the relic shipments to Orsay International. Oh, come on! Couldn't it have been literally any other of the Dark Age vampires? Well, anyways, this reveal seems to unsettle Pink as he becomes very insistent that there's no way Orsay could be connected and leaves Tony in a puddle of his own marinara. And with barely enough time to say, "What the fuck was that about, dude?" a turtlenecked Wilhelm arrives to reveal that Pink is no Bruja, but in fact an Asamite hired by the Tzimisce to keep Kristoff from interfering in Vukodlak's return a second time.
Abdul al-Hasim, master disciple of the Asamites at your service. You must admit, I affected the idiotic Bruja aesthetic with flawless perfection. But now, I must take my leave of you, Kristoff. My takya is finished. The Tzimisce charged me with preventing you from finding exalted Master Vukodlak before he arises. Alas, they did not specify that I had to put my knife into your heart. So, I let you kill my Setite enemies. And taking out that greasy Giovanni boss put the icing on the cake. Despite my best efforts, you came perilously close to finding Vukodlak. But now I have wasted so much of your time that you cannot possibly reach him before he arises, even if you knew where to look. Oh, and Kristoff. Sorry I did not help you out of the kindness of my heart. But no sane vampire is that stupid. Farewell. Enjoy the new year. And the new age.
Okay, am I the only one who kinda wants Curtis Armstrong to play more villains? I mean, he definitely plays one in Revenge of the Nerds, but that's more of a hindsight and values changing over time sort of thing.
What about you, Booger? I've been out combing the high schools all day.
And because we're not done yet with dramatic reveals, Wilhelm also admits that in the past 800 years, he and Ekaterina have joined up with the Sabbat.
Ooh, that's bad. We needed new allies, but we refused to join the Ventrue and their Tremere and their Masquerade, their Camarilla.
That's good.
Ekaterina is an archbishop of the Sabbat now.
That's bad.
But she fights against the Sabbat who serve Vukodlak.
That's good.
Yes, I am Sabbat. But Pink is no Bruja.
That's bad.
Can I go now?
Thankfully, it only takes a couple lines from Kristoff to re-evangelize Wilhelm away from the Sabbat, this plot point never being revisited afterwards. I'm a wrestling fan, I get it. Sometimes a heel turn doesn't work out and you just need a quick excuse to make him babyface again. We've all seen it before. The subsequent fight through Orsay International turns out to be leagues easier than the warehouse, as Orsay was an idiot and staffed his guards with young Ventrue, the biggest pushovers in direct combat among all the clans. A few war ghouls here and there isn't going to make up for the fact that most of your army consists of yuppies with pea shooters. And since I can't stand listening to Orsay, let's just cut to the good part.
Perfect tens across the board, except for the German judge. 9 on that one.
Though Orsay himself was no use in discovering the location of Vukodlak's lair, his chesty underlings point Kristoff and company in the direction of the nearby ruined church, beneath which lies the final dungeon, the Cathedral of Flesh. A place which quickly lives up to that metal-ass name with grotesque, Gigeresque architecture everywhere. And with how Tzimisce like to use their flesh sculpting, there's a very good chance a lot of the people used to make the decor are still very much alive.
This is a lovely room of death.
Though try as they might, the Coterie are too late to prevent an also very much alive Inezca from releasing Vukodlak upon the world. So I guess that only leaves us with option B. Kill him till he dies. Though with him being the final boss and all, surely Prison of Ice won't holy shit.
You have no hope of winning.
I have hope beyond hope.
You waste my time. I have no more patience for you. Your skin and bones will add to the walls of my Cathedral of Flesh.
Oh, okay, that explains it. My old nemesis, the multi-phase boss fight. But before working their way back up to Vukodlak, Kristoff and friends stumble upon Inezka's diary chamber. Gotta hand it to the Tzimisce. They've got a gimmick and they stick to it. No basic pen and paper for these vampires. The only way you'll catch a Tzimisce or their ghoul journaling is with a freaky flesh-stock thing with a copy of their face on the end. Ugh. Through these diary entries, it's revealed that Inezka might have the strongest will in the entire world of darkness, as she's actually been faking her devotion to Vukodlak for 800 years and spent all that time doing everything she could to undermine attempts to bring about his return any sooner, going so far as to commit evil acts of her own volition to convince the Methuselah he successfully corrupted her and worm her way into his inner circle. It's only with the coming of the year 2000 that she can delay Vukodlak's return no longer and prays for the return of Kristoff, the one being her master truly fears. Time to finish what those sissy ancient vampires couldn't and give Vukodlak the final death he deserves.
You survived my hosts. Impressive, young crusaders. You have earned something few have seen. Your final vision shall be that of my true form. Watch as I reveal the absolute power of the Voivod!
Not gonna lie, you were more intimidating before the transformation. $5 says he's gonna wreck my ass anyways. Yep, saw that one coming.
Many minutes later.
I'm dead sure this won't work, but I'm running out of ideas. I love you, Prison of Ice! With the world saved in the cheapest way possible, and because he kept his humanity stat high, the main reason to do so besides reducing frenzy risk, Kristoff at long last earns his happy ending.
I only pray that one day I may attain thy forgiveness.
I grant all forgiveness, though thou art blameless and pure in mine eyes.
Then death finds me in joy and rapture.
Happy in this case being relative to World of Darkness standards. He still has to embrace Inezka in order to prevent her from dying alongside Vukodlak as a ghoul normally would and all that. But in the World of Darkness, this is downright saccharine. If you go into Vampire the Masquerade Redemption expecting an in-depth role-playing experience with dialogue trees galore like in Bloodlines, you're going to be sorely disappointed. However, if you're in the mood for an action RPG in the vein of Diablo and are willing to put up with a fair amount of jank in the process, I think you'll have fun with this one. And if I'm being honest, I think Legacy of Kain fans in particular would love Redemption. Being a gothic fantasy epic that spans centuries and is filled to the brim with hammy speeches and soliloquies, it unintentionally winds up feeling more like a proper successor to Blood Omen than the one we actually got. I hate you so much, Blood Omen 2. The campaign's fairly short length for an RPG, clocking in at roughly 15 hours, may be a sticking point for some players, but for those types looking to get the most bang for their buck, Redemption does possess a rather intriguing multiplayer mode I didn't have the time, also didn't have enough friends, to examine in detail. It's designed to play like a digital version of the tabletop, with a group of players creating their own characters while the storyteller, White Wolf's original do not steal term for a dungeon master, organizes the adventure and all that jazz. Which means Nihilistic beat BioWare to the same idea by 2 years. Shame nobody has cared all that much to make more RPGs with multiplayer modes like this. After those two, we got, what? Neverwinter Nights 2 and that Sword Coast Legends game Atari won't let anyone buy anymore?
Darn it, I can be such a jerk sometimes.
If you'd like to play Redemption for yourself, digital versions are available on both Steam and GOG for a mere $6. The game may have its faults, but it's hardly the worst way to spend $6 if you love yourself some vampires like I do. I mean, they want a whole extra $1 for Blood Omen 2. Have I mentioned that I don't care for that game? We can go into details whenever I get off my ass and finally do that Legacy of Kain retrospective I've had sitting half-written since 2023.
Victus!
That's it for this one. But seeing as how I totally whiffed on getting this out by Halloween, we may as well stick to the horror theme for one more video as we
combos, extra bacon on the side, 2 chili cheese samplers, a basket of liver and onion rings, a catch of the day, and a steak cut in the shape of a trout. You got all that, honey?
3 liquors wearing pants, plate of hot air, basket of grandma's breakfast, and change the bull to a gill. Got it.